Sergeant Kira Mendoza stepped off the transport ship and onto the landing platform of Forward Station Tertius. The air tasted different here, thinner than Earth standard but breathable. Around her, the station buzzed with activity. Aliens of every shape and size moved between buildings, some walking, some floating, some skittering on multiple legs. Kira adjusted the weight of her armor. The powered suit hummed quietly against her body, familiar and comfortable after 10 years of service. She was used to being the only human in a room. Earth had only joined the Galactic Coalition 5 years ago, and humans were still rare this far out on the frontier. "Sergeant Mendoza?" A tall alien approached her. Its body looked like it was made of purple crystal, reflecting light in strange patterns. "I am Commander Zethus. Welcome to Tertius." "Thank you, Commander." Kira saluted in the human way, then remembered and touched her fist to her chest in the Coalition style. "You will be training with the Relkan unit," Zethus said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "They are nervous about working with a human." Kira had heard that before. Humans came from a death world. Earth had higher gravity, more diseases, and more predators than most planets in the Coalition. Other species called humans apex predators and monsters in skin suits. It didn't bother her anymore. The Relkan training ground was behind the main complex. When Kira arrived, she saw about 20 aliens waiting. They looked like big cats standing on 2 legs, covered in golden and brown fur. Their ears flicked nervously when they saw her. "This is the human?" one of them asked. His voice was deep, almost a growl. "I am Sergeant Mendoza," Kira said. She kept her voice calm and steady. "I'm here to train with you in close combat." The Relkans looked at each other. Their tails swished back and forth, which Kira had learned meant they were uncertain. The training lasted 3 hours. Kira demonstrated human fighting techniques. The Relkans were fast and graceful, but they hesitated to get too close to her. She could see the fear in their wide eyes, the way they flinched when she moved quickly. By the end, Kira was exhausted. The powered armor helped, but she had been demonstrating moves over and over. Sweat ran down her face inside her helmet. When the training ended, she walked to the edge of the yard and sat down against a wall. She took off her helmet and let the cool air touch her skin. The armor was still powered down, making quiet humming sounds. Heat radiated from it slowly. Kira closed her eyes and just breathed. She didn't notice the 3 small figures watching from the observation deck above. The Relkan cubs had been there all afternoon with their caretaker. They were supposed to stay quiet and watch their parents train. But the youngest one, barely 3 years old in Earth years, had been fascinated by the human. "Mama said humans are dangerous," whispered the oldest cub, a female named Liz. "She doesn't look dangerous now," said the middle cub, Tor. "She looks tired." The youngest, Pix, didn't say anything. He just stared at the human sitting against the wall. Something about her felt safe. He couldn't explain it, even to himself. Before anyone could stop him, Pix slipped through the railing and climbed down. "Pix, no!" the caretaker hissed, but it was too late. The other 2 cubs followed their brother. Kira's eyes were still closed when she heard the soft padding of feet. She opened them and froze. 3 small Relkan cubs were approaching her. Their ears were forward, not back in fear. Their tails were up, curious. She didn't move. She barely breathed. Relkan cubs never approached strangers, especially not predators. Their instincts should be screaming at them to run. The smallest cub reached her first. He sniffed at her boot, then looked up at her face. Their eyes met. The cub made a small chirping sound, then climbed onto her armored leg. Kira's heart pounded. What was happening? The other 2 cubs followed. They climbed over her armor like it was a playground, their small claws finding grips in the joints and plates. Then they settled down, curling into balls on her chest and lap. Within seconds, all 3 cubs were asleep. Their breathing was deep and even, their small bodies completely relaxed. The training yard exploded with noise. Adult Relcans rushed over, their voices sharp with panic. The caretaker was apologizing frantically. Commander Zethus appeared from somewhere, its crystalline body flashing with agitated colors. "Don't move!" someone shouted. "I'm not moving," Kira said quietly. Her arms were out to her sides, not touching the cubs. "I don't understand what's happening." An older Relkan pushed through the crowd. His fur was silver with age, and he wore the marks of a clan leader. He stared at the sleeping cubs, his mouth open in shock. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Relkan cubs do not sleep outside the family den. They certainly do not sleep on predators." "She must have done something," another Relkan said. "Some human trick." "I didn't do anything," Kira protested. "I was just sitting here. They came to me." Commander Zethus bent down to examine the cubs. Its crystal body made soft clicking sounds as it moved. "They are in deep sleep," it said. "Real sleep, not stunned or drugged. Their vital signs are perfect. They are more relaxed than I have ever seen Relkan young." The silver-furred leader reached out slowly and touched his cub, the smallest one named Pix. The cub didn't wake, just made a happy little sound and snuggled deeper against Kira's armor. "This has never happened before," the leader said. He looked at Kira with an expression she couldn't read. "Not in all our history." "What are you, human?" Kira had no answer. She sat there for another hour while scientists and doctors came to examine the cubs. They ran scanners over the sleeping forms, took readings from Kira's armor, and argued in 6 different languages. Finally, the cubs woke on their own. They looked around, yawned with tiny fangs showing, and climbed down from Kira as if it was the most normal thing in the world. They ran back to their caretaker without fear, without trauma. Pix looked back at Kira once before he left. He gave her a small wave with his paw. That night, Kira lay in her quarters and stared at the ceiling. Her armor stood in the corner, still carrying the scent of the cubs. She thought about their weight on her chest, the trust in their small bodies. Something had changed. She didn't understand it yet, but she could feel it. The galaxy had just shown her something impossible, and nothing would be the same again. Dr. Theiss adjusted the scanner in her webbed hands and looked at the data again. It still didn't make sense. The amphibian scientist had spent 3 weeks studying the human, and every day brought new questions instead of answers. "It happened again last night," her assistant said. The young Quellen's skin was bright green with excitement. 4 Vrix younglings this time. They found the human in the recreation area and fell asleep on her shoulders. Theiss pulled up the security footage. Sure enough, there was Sergeant Mendoza, sitting on a bench reading something on her datapad. 4 insectoid younglings, their carapaces still soft with youth, had crawled up beside her. Within minutes, they were sleeping peacefully, while the human just kept reading, barely moving. "The parents came running," her assistant continued. "They were terrified at first, but the younglings were so calm. One of the mothers cried. She said her child hadn't slept that well in months." It wasn't just the Relkans anymore. Over the past weeks, young from every species on the station had started seeking out the human. Vrix younglings, Morrow tadpoles, even the energy-based Lumina children seemed drawn to her. They would approach Sergeant Mendoza during her rest periods, settle against her or her armor, and sleep. "Look at these readings," Theiss said, pointing to the screen. "When the younglings are near her, their stress hormones drop by 40%. Heart rates slow to optimal rest levels. Brain activity shows deep, healthy sleep patterns." "What about the human's readings?" "That's what bothers me." Theiss pulled up another chart. "She shows no signs of using pheromones or emitting unusual energy. Her armor has no special technology. There's nothing mechanical or chemical happening here." A chime sounded. Commander Zethus was calling for another meeting. Thys sighed and packed her datapad. This would be the 5th meeting this week. Everyone wanted answers she didn't have. The conference room was crowded. Representatives from every species on the station had gathered. The tension was thick enough to cut. Thys saw Sergeant Mendoza sitting in the corner, still in her armor, looking uncomfortable with all the attention. "This cannot continue," said Warlord Kren, the Relkin clan leader. His silver fur was bristling. "My people are confused. Our younglings ignore their parents to sleep on this predator." "My children too," added Avrick's mother, her mandibles clicking anxiously. "They refuse to sleep in the nursery. They cry until they see the human." Sergeant Mendoza spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. "I haven't encouraged this. I haven't done anything to them. They just come to me." "Perhaps it is a threat display," suggested a reptilian score representative. "Humans evolved as apex predators. Maybe this is how they mark territory by claiming other species young." "That's ridiculous," snapped Captain Venn. The human officer had arrived 2 days ago to investigate. He stood behind Mendoza, his arms crossed. "Humans don't have territory displays like that." "Then explain it," Kren demanded. "Explain why our most precious ones who should fear Death Worlders instead treat her like a parent." Silence fell over the room. No one had an explanation. Dr. Thys stood up. "I may have found something," she said. "It's not conclusive, but it's interesting. I've been looking through Earth's historical databases." She activated the holo display. Images of Earth filled the air above the table. Humans are unique in the galaxy in one specific way. They are the only species that regularly adopts and raises young from other species. "What do you mean?" Commander Zethus asked. "Humans keep what they call pets," Thys explained. "They take young from other species, dogs and cats and birds and reptiles, and raise them in their homes as family members. They protect them, feed them, care for them as if they were human children. No other species does this." Murmurs spread through the room. "Furthermore," Thys continued, "humans rescue endangered species, operate sanctuaries for orphaned animals, and even form bonds with wild creatures. There are documented cases of humans adopting baby bears, wolves, even predators that could kill them. This behavior is universal across all human cultures." Sergeant Mendoza was staring at the images. Thys saw something shift in the human's expression. Recognition, maybe, or memory. "My hypothesis," Thys said carefully, "is that humans evolved some kind of biological or psychological trait that makes them natural caretakers, not just of their own young, but of any young creature. And somehow younglings from other species can sense this." "But why?" Kren asked. "Why would evolution create such a thing?" "It makes no survival sense to care for other species' offspring." Thys had no answer to that. Not yet. After the meeting, Thys found Sergeant Mendoza alone in the observation deck. The human was staring out at the stars, her helmet under one arm. "May I join you?" Thys asked. Mendoza nodded. They stood in silence for a moment. "I had a daughter," Mendoza said suddenly. "Before I joined the military, I worked in child protective services on Earth. I took care of children who had been hurt or abandoned, made sure they were safe." "What happened to your daughter?" "Raiders attacked our colony. She was 6. Mendoza's voice was flat, emotionless. "I wasn't there. I was working, protecting other people's children while mine died." Thys felt her skin turn a sympathetic blue. "I'm sorry. I joined the military because I thought I could prevent that from happening to others. But I never—" Mendoza gestured helplessly. "I never expected this. These alien cubs, they don't know my past. They don't know I failed my own child. But they trust me anyway." "Perhaps," Thys said gently. "That is exactly why they trust you. You understand loss. You understand the need to protect." A small sound made them both turn. Pix, the smallest Relkan cub, had followed them. His golden eyes were wide and bright. He walked straight to Mendoza and held up his small arms. Without thinking, Mendoza picked him up. The cub settled against her armored chest and closed his eyes. "His father is afraid," Thys said. "Kren doesn't understand why his son trusts you more than he trusts his own clan." "I would never hurt him," Mendoza whispered, her hand carefully supporting the cub's back. "I know," Thys said. "Somehow he knows too." Over the following days, the situation escalated. More younglings sought out human contact. Parents grew more anxious. Some species demanded that Sergeant Mendoza be removed from the station. Others argued that their children had never been healthier or happier. Commander Zethus made a decision. "We will separate the human from the family quarters," the commander announced. "Until we understand what is happening, we must be cautious." But that night, the nurseries erupted in chaos. Younglings from every species began crying, refusing to sleep. They climbed walls, escaped from locked rooms, all trying to reach the human quarters. The caretakers were overwhelmed. The noise was deafening. Finally, in desperation, they brought Sergeant Mendoza to the nursery entrance. The effect was immediate. The younglings calmed down. They stopped crying and began settling back into their beds as long as they could see the human. Mendoza had to stand there for hours, just visible in the doorway, while dozens of alien children finally fell asleep. Dr. Thys watched it all and knew they were dealing with something far bigger than anyone had imagined. This wasn't about one human and a few cubs. This was about something fundamental in human nature, something that might change how the galaxy saw Earth forever. And somewhere deep in her research files, she found a reference to an event on Earth 75,000 years ago. A massive volcanic eruption that had nearly wiped out humanity. Only a few thousand humans had survived. Thys stared at the data and wondered. What had happened to humanity in those desperate times? What had they become in order to survive? She had a feeling the answer would surprise everyone. The alarm woke Kira from a dead sleep. Red lights flashed in her quarters as the emergency siren wailed. She was in her armor within 2 minutes, helmet secured, weapons checked. "All personnel to deployment stations," Commander Zethus's voice crackled over the comms. "We have a distress call from Mining Colony 7. Raiders are attacking. They're targeting the nursery." Kira's blood went cold. She ran to the hangar bay where the rest of the quick reaction force was gathering. 20 soldiers from different species, all heavily armed. She saw Warlord Kren there, along with several other Relkan warriors. "Kren," Captain Ven said, "you should stay here. Your cub is at the station." "My sister's cubs are at Colony 7, Kren growled. "And my warriors' children. We go." The flight to the southern continent took 40 minutes. Every minute felt like an hour. Kira checked her weapons 3 times. Beside her, a Relkan warrior named Thresh was shaking, his claws extended. "First combat?" Kira asked. "No," Thresh said. "But first combat where my daughter is in danger. She is only 4 seasons old." Kira put her armored hand on his shoulder. "We'll get her out." The mining colony was burning when they arrived. Black smoke rose from several buildings. Weapons fire lit up the evening sky. The raiders were called the Kresh Swarm, a species that looked like armored beetles standing upright. They were known for stealing and selling anything valuable, including living beings. "The nursery is in the center of the colony," the pilot announced. "The Kresh have it surrounded. We're reading at least 30 hostiles, plus unknown numbers inside the building." The transport landed hard. The team poured out into chaos. Colonists were running everywhere, some wounded, some carrying whatever possessions they could grab. Kira saw a Morrow family, their blue skin slick with fear sweat, huddled behind a wall. "Move to the nursery," Captain Ven ordered. "Combat formation. Watch for traps." The Kresh opened fire immediately. Energy bolts hissed through the air. Kira's armor took 2 hits, the shields flaring but holding. She returned fire, her rifle bucking against her shoulder. A Kresh raider went down, its carapace shattered. The human soldiers moved like a single unit, covering each other, advancing steadily. The Relkans fought beside them, fast and deadly with their close-range weapons. But as they got closer to the nursery, the situation became clear. The Kresh had hostages. Through the windows, Kira could see younglings inside, guarded by raiders with weapons. The message was obvious: attack, and the children die. "Hold position," Ven ordered. "We need to negotiate." "No time," Kren snarled. "Listen." Kira heard it then. The sound of younglings crying inside the nursery. Not just Relkan cubs, but Vrix chittering in distress, Morrow younglings making their panic calls, and dozens of other voices. The sound of terrified children. "We need to breach," Kira said, "before they transport them off-world." "They'll kill the hostages," another soldier protested. Kira looked at the building. Her mind was racing, working through scenarios. Then she remembered something Dr. Thies had said. "The younglings trust you. They calm down when you're near." "I have an idea," she said, "but it's risky." 5 minutes later, Kira was at the nursery door. She had removed her helmet and held it under one arm. Captain Ven thought she was crazy. Kren thought she was brave. She thought she was probably going to die. "I'm coming in," she called out in Galactic Common. "I'm unarmed. I want to help the younglings." "Stay back, human," a Kresh voice screeched from inside. "We will kill them." "They're scared," Kira said. She kept her voice calm and even. "I can help them calm down. Then they won't be difficult to move. You want them quiet, right? For transport?" There was silence. Then the door opened a crack. A Kresh raider aimed a weapon at her. "Drop the armor. Come in alone." "No," Kren hissed from behind cover. "It's suicide." But Kira was already powering down her armor. She stepped out of it, wearing only the light bodysuit underneath. No weapons, no protection. Just her. She walked into the nursery with her hands visible. The scene inside was nightmare. 30 younglings from a dozen species were huddled in the corners. Some were crying, some were frozen in fear, some were trying to bite the Kresh guards. The raiders looked agitated, their mandibles clicking nervously. Younglings in panic were dangerous and difficult. "See?" Kira said softly. "They're terrified. Let me calm them down." A Kresh that seemed to be the leader tilted its head. "You have 1 minute, human. Then we transport them." Kira walked slowly into the center of the room. She sat down on the floor, cross-legged. Every youngling in the room turned to look at her. "Hey," she said quietly. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But it's going to be okay." The nearest youngling was a tiny Vrix, its soft carapace still showing baby patterns. It took one tentative step toward her, then another. Kira held out her hand. The Vrix youngling touched her finger with one small leg. Then it climbed into her lap. Like a dam breaking, the other younglings moved. They came from every corner of the room, crawling, walking, hopping toward the human. Within seconds, Kira was covered in alien children. They clung to her arms, her shoulders, her back. They pressed against her, seeking comfort. The Kresh raiders stared in disbelief. "What are they doing?" one of them hissed. The younglings were calming down. Their cries stopped. Some were already falling asleep against Kira's warmth. She sat very still, supporting as many as she could with her arms. "See?" she said to the Kresh leader. "Calm. Easy to handle now." The leader approached her, weapon still raised. "How did you do that?" "I don't know," Kira said honestly. "They just trust me." That's when the wall exploded. Captain Ven and the human strike team came through in a shower of debris. They had used Kira's entry as a distraction, circling to the back of the building. The Kresh turned to fire, but the Relkan warriors were already among them, moving with lethal speed. The firefight was brutal and quick. Kira curled her body around the younglings, shielding them with her own flesh. Energy bolts sizzled past her head. She felt something hot graze her shoulder, smelled burning skin. "Get the younglings out!" Ven shouted. But the younglings wouldn't let go of Kira. They clung to her desperately. Thresh ran to her, his daughter wrapped around Kira's arm. "Little one, come to Papa," he said. "No," the cub whimpered. "Safe here." Kren appeared beside them, firing his weapon at a Kresh raider. "They won't leave the human," he realized. "Then we all move together," Kira gasped. Pain was spreading through her shoulder where she'd been hit. "Come on, babies. We're going outside. Stay close to me." She stood up, younglings hanging from every part of her body. More soldiers surrounded her, creating a protective wall. They moved as a group toward the door, fighting their way through the remaining Kresh. Outside, colonist parents were screaming, seeing their children. But the younglings still wouldn't let go of Kira. One by one, the soldiers had to carefully pry small bodies away from her and pass them to their families. Kira's legs were shaking. Her shoulder was bleeding badly now, the pain making her vision blur. She had given every youngling to their parent except for Thresh's daughter, who was still wrapped around her neck. "Please, little one," Thresh begged, his voice breaking. "Come to Papa." The cub looked at her father, then at Kira. She touched Kira's face with one small paw. "Thank you, Guardian," she whispered. Then she finally let go. Kira collapsed. She woke up in the medical bay of the transport, flying back to the station. A medic was working on her shoulder. Through the window, she could see Kren sitting with his nieces and nephews, all of them safe. Captain Ven appeared in her view. "That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen, Sergeant." "Did we get them all?" Kira asked. "Every single youngling." "Because of you." Ven paused. "The Relkans are calling you something in their language." Kren tried to translate. "The closest word in common is guardian." Kira closed her eyes. She thought about her daughter, about all the children she'd tried to save in her old life, about these alien younglings who had trusted her without reason. "Guardian," she repeated softly. Maybe that's what she had always been meant to be. Kira's hospital room had become something she never expected. A nursery. The younglings refused to leave. Thresh's daughter, who Kira learned was named Mira, had appointed herself as chief guardian of the wounded human. She sat on Kira's bed, growling at anyone who came too close. Pix visited 3 times a day, bringing drawings he had made. Other cubs from the colony, transported to the station for safety, came to check on her. The doctors were baffled but allowed it. Every time they tried to move the younglings out, Kira's vital signs would worsen. When the cubs were present, she healed faster. Dr. Thais visited on the 3rd day. The Quellan scientist looked tired but excited. "I found something," she said, setting up her datapad. "Something big." Kira shifted in bed, careful not to disturb Mira, who was napping against her side. "What is it?" "I've been diving deep into Earth's genetic history," Thys explained. 75,000 years ago, there was a catastrophic event. The Toba supervolcano eruption. It created a volcanic winter that lasted years. Most life on Earth died. "I learned about that in school," Kira said. "Humanity almost went extinct." "Yes, your species was reduced to perhaps 10,000 individuals, maybe less." Thais pulled up a holographic image of DNA strands. "But here's what's interesting. Before that event, Earth had multiple human subspecies: Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo erectus, and others, all living at the same time. They all died out, though. Not exactly." This highlighted sections of the DNA. "Modern humans carry genetic material from these other subspecies. You absorbed them. And I found something in the ancient human DNA that doesn't exist in any other species I've studied." She pulled up a brain scan. This is a human brain when a human sees a child in distress. Any child, not just human. Watch what happens. The scan showed areas lighting up in specific patterns. The human brain releases a cascade of chemicals. Oxytocin, vasopressin, dopamine. Your stress response activates, but instead of fight or flight, it triggers fight to protect. Your entire nervous system is hardwired to respond to vulnerable young. Other species don't have that? Kira asked. Not like this. Other species respond to their own young, or closely related species. Humans respond to anything small and vulnerable. It's universal across your entire species. Tess paused. I believe this trait developed during the Toba event. When everything was dying, humans survived by banding together, by protecting not just their own children, but orphaned children from other human subspecies, by adopting, by nurturing, by refusing to let any young one die alone. Kira felt something twist in her chest. We evolved through loss. Yes, the humans who survived were the ones who saved every child they could find, regardless of whether that child was genetically theirs or even from their own subspecies. Over thousands of years, this became embedded in your biology. You became caretakers, guardians. But why do alien younglings respond to us? Thais smiled. That took longer to figure out, but I found it. Human brainwaves, when you're near younglings, emit a specific frequency. It's very subtle, but it's there. And it matches the frequency that most carbon-based life uses for parent-offspring bonding. It's not exact, but it's close enough that younglings instinctively recognize it as safe. The armor, Kira said suddenly. It amplifies it somehow. Exactly. Thais was nearly bouncing with excitement. The powered armor resonates with your natural frequency and makes it stronger. That's why the cubs first came to you when you were resting in your armor. Mira stirred and looked up at them. Talk quieter, the cub grumbled. Guardian needs rest. Both Kira and Thais laughed softly. A chime at the door announced another visitor. Commander Zethus entered, its crystalline body shifting through colors that Kira had learned to read as serious. Sergeant Mendoza, I have news. The Galactic Coalition Council has convened an emergency session. They want to discuss humanity's place in the coalition. Kira's stomach sank. Are they going to kick Earth out? Some want that. Others... Zethus paused. Others want to use humans as weapons. Specifically, they want to use your effect on younglings as a pacification tool. Put humans in every contested area, use your presence to control other species' children. No, Kira said immediately. Absolutely not. There's more. Some species are frightened. They see this ability as dangerous. They worry that humans could steal their younglings, or manipulate them, or use them as hostages. Kira looked down at Mira, who had wrapped her small arms around Kira's hand protectively. I would never hurt her. I would die before I let anyone hurt her. I know, Zethus said, and so do the Relkins. Warlord Kren is speaking at the council right now, along with representatives from every species whose younglings you saved. They're defending humanity. Over the next week, while Kira recovered, the galaxy argued about what humans were. Dangerous predators? Natural guardians? Something to be feared? Or something to be treasured? Captain Ven came to see her with an offer. Earth Command wants to create a new unit, he said. The Guardian Corps. Human soldiers specifically trained and deployed to protect colonies and stations with young populations. They want you to lead it. What if I say no? Kira asked. Then someone else leads it, and they might not have the right intentions. You know what it means to protect children, Kira. You know it's not about control or power. It's about keeping them safe. Kira thought about her daughter, about all the children she couldn't save, about Mira and Pix, and all the younglings who trusted her without question. There are conditions, she said finally. Humans don't control the younglings. We don't use them. We only protect them, and only if their species asks for our help. It has to be voluntary." "Agreed," Ven said. "Draft your terms. I'll make sure Earth Command accepts them." The council session was broadcast across the galaxy. Kira watched from her hospital bed as species after species spoke. Some condemned humans, but more spoke in their defense. Kren stood at the podium, his silver fur gleaming under the lights. "My people have feared Deathworlders since we joined the coalition," he said. "We saw humans as monsters, as apex predators who could destroy us. But when our younglings were in danger, when raiders came for our most precious ones, it was a human who saved them, not because she was ordered to, not because there was profit in it, but because she could not bear to see children harmed." He paused, his voice growing stronger. "She took weapons fire meant for my niece. She carried our younglings out of hell while bleeding from her wounds. And when it was over, when she had given everything, she asked only if they were all safe. That is not a monster. That is a guardian. That is what humans are." Avrick's mother spoke next, her mandibles clicking softly. "My child did not sleep well for months. Anxiety," the doctors said, "common in young Vricks. But when he met Sergeant Mendoza, he slept through the night for the first time in half a year. She did nothing but exist near him. Her presence was enough. How can we fear something that brings our children peace?" The vote came down to a single question. Would the galaxy accept humanity's protection or reject it out of fear? The results came through. 53 species voted yes, 22 voted no, 12 abstained. Humanity would stay in the coalition. The Guardian Corps would be established, but they would operate under strict guidelines, always at the invitation of other species, never forced upon them. Kira was released from medical care 2 days later. As she walked through the station, younglings from a dozen species waved at her. Parents nodded with respect. Some even smiled. In her quarters, she found a message waiting. It was from Earth Command, officially offering her command of the Guardian Corps. She would need to recruit humans, train them, establish protocols, and build something that had never existed before. She looked at the acceptance form for a long time. Then she heard a small knock at her door. Pix stood there, holding his father's hand. Kren looked uncomfortable but determined. "My son insists he must give you something," Kren said. Pix held out a small carving. It was made of wood, shaped like a human figure wearing armor. On the armor was carved a symbol Kira didn't recognize. "It is the Relkan mark for Guardian," Kren explained. "Usually only given to the head of a family who protects the clan. Pix made this himself. He wants you to have it." Kira took the carving carefully. It was rough, made by small paws that were still learning. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever received. "Thank you, Pix," she said softly. The cub hugged her leg, then looked up at her with bright eyes. "You'll keep us safe, right? All of us?" Kira thought about every youngling in the galaxy who might need protection. She thought about the responsibility, the weight of it, the impossibility of saving everyone. Then she looked at Pix and knew her answer had always been decided. "Yes," she said. "I promise." 3 years later, Kira stood in the same training yard where it had all begun. The wall she had rested against was still there, but now it was part of something bigger. A memorial garden surrounded it, filled with plants from 100 worlds. Each one represented a species that had joined the Guardian program. "Commander Mendoza," a voice called. She turned to see Lieutenant Chen jogging toward her. The young human woman was one of the first recruits to the Guardian Corps. "The new trainees are ready for inspection." Kira smiled. "How many this time?" 20 humans and 15 volunteers from other species. The Relkans sent 5 warriors, the Vricks sent 3. Even a score signed up. That was new. The reptilian score had been among the most vocal opponents of the Guardian program at the start. But 6 months ago, A score colony had requested Guardian protection during a territorial dispute. The human team had successfully prevented any casualties, especially among the score hatchlings. Attitudes had shifted. The training ground was full of activity. Human soldiers in Guardian armor practiced alongside aliens of every shape. A Relcan warrior was teaching close-quarters combat to a human half her size. A human medic was learning Vrick's anatomy from a senior Vrick soldier. The air hummed with different languages, different movement styles, all working together. "Attention!" Lieutenant Chen called out. The trainees formed up, a mixed line of species that would have been impossible 3 years ago. Kira walked along the line, examining each one. She stopped at a young Relcan male whose fur was still dark with youth. "Name?" she asked. "Tor, Commander, son of Warlord Kren." Kira blinked in surprise. She remembered Tor as one of the 3 cubs who had first climbed on her armor. He was nearly adult now, tall and strong. "Your father approved this?" she asked. "He encouraged it." Tor's ears were forward and confident. "He says someone must learn from the best Guardian, and I have always wanted to protect others the way you protected me." Kira felt her throat tighten. She moved on before her emotions could show too much. The training lasted all day. Humans and aliens learned together how to read distress signals from different species, how to approach frightened younglings, how to create safe zones in combat situations. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about understanding, protecting, and sometimes just being present. As evening fell, Kira called for a rest break. The trainees scattered to eat and drink. Kira found her usual spot against the memorial wall and sat down, her armor humming softly as it cooled. Within minutes, she felt the familiar weight. A small Morrow youngling, whose parents were both Guardian trainees, had climbed onto her lap. Then a Vrick's hatchling settled on her shoulder. More came, young from the families of trainees and station personnel, drawn by something they couldn't explain but trusted completely. Kira saw Lieutenant Chen watching with a smile. "It still happens every time," Chen said. "It always will," Kira replied. She had long since stopped questioning it. This was who humans were. This was what they had become through ages of loss and survival. Dr. Thiss appeared from the station entrance. The Quellan scientist visited regularly, still studying the human-youngling bond. She had published 3 papers on the subject. Other species were beginning to understand that this wasn't manipulation or control. It was just human nature. "Kira," Thiss said warmly, "I have someone who wants to meet you." Behind Thiss was a young human girl, perhaps 7 years old. She had dark hair and serious eyes and was holding a datapad covered in drawings. "This is Lily," Thiss explained. "Her parents are colonists on the station. She heard about the Guardian program and has been asking to meet you for months." Lily approached shyly. The alien younglings made space for her, and she sat down next to Kira. "Hi," Lily said quietly. "Hello, Lily," Kira replied. "What have you been drawing?" Lily showed her the datapad. The drawings were of humans in armor, surrounded by alien children. In every picture, everyone was smiling. "I want to be a Guardian when I grow up," Lily said. "Is that okay?" Kira looked at this small human child, sitting peacefully among alien younglings who treated her like family. She thought about how the galaxy had changed, how fear had slowly transformed into trust. "I think that would be wonderful," Kira said. "But you don't have to wait until you're grown up to be a Guardian. You can start now by being kind to others and helping protect those who are smaller or scared." Lily nodded seriously. Then she leaned against Kira's arm, and within moments was asleep, just like the alien younglings. That night, after the trainees had been dismissed and the younglings had been returned to their families, Kira met with her senior staff. The Guardian Corps had grown beyond anything she had imagined. They now had outposts on 50 worlds, over 200 human guardians, and partnerships with 30 species. "We have 3 new requests," Captain Venn reported. He had taken a position as her second-in-command, helping manage the Corps' expansion. The Quellan homeworld wants a guardian team for their capital city nursery. The Mining Guild on Tertius Station 7 is requesting protection during their worker exchange program. And the Lumina are asking if we can help with their refugee children from the border conflicts. The Lumina? Kira was surprised. The energy-based beings had been skeptical of human contact. What changed? A Lumina child got separated from their parent in a transport hub. They were terrified, flickering out. A human cargo handler sat with them for 6 hours until the parent was found. The child stabilized just from the human's presence. Kira approved all 3 requests. This was the work, not glory or battle, but quiet protection, being present, being steady, being the thing that younglings across the galaxy somehow knew they could trust. Later, alone in her office, Kira opened a secure file. In it was a single photo of her daughter, taken weeks before she died. Kira looked at it often, but it didn't hurt as much as it used to. "I couldn't save you," she whispered to the image. "But because of you, because of what I learned from losing you, I've saved thousands of others. I hope that matters. I hope you'd be proud." A small knock on her door. Kira looked up to see Mira, now a young adult Relkan, but still small compared to other species. She was training to be a guardian herself, one of the first non-humans to qualify. "Commander, you should rest," Mira said. "You have the graduation ceremony tomorrow." "I will. Thank you, Mira." The young Relkan hesitated. "Commander, may I ask something personal?" "Of course." "Why do you do this? You could have retired after the Colony 7 incident. You had done enough. But you keep going. Why?" Kira thought about all the faces she had seen over 3 years. Every youngling saved, every parent's grateful tears, every species that had learned to trust humanity. "Because I can't not do it," she said finally. "None of us can. It's who we are. When humans see something young and vulnerable and afraid, we have to help. We don't choose it. It's written into our bones, our DNA, our history. We're the species that survived extinction by refusing to let any child die alone. That's not something we can turn off." Mira nodded slowly. "That is why we trust you. Not because you're strong or skilled, but because you cannot help but care." After Mira left, Kira walked to the window. She could see the stations spreading below, lights from 100 different quarters. Somewhere in those lights were younglings from every corner of the galaxy, sleeping peacefully because they knew guardians were watching. The next day, the graduation ceremony filled the main hangar. 20 new guardians stood at attention, humans and aliens together wearing the guardian insignia. Families filled the audience. Younglings sat with their parents, some waving at the guardians they knew. Kira gave the oath, the same one she had written 3 years ago. "I swear to protect those who cannot protect themselves. I swear to stand between danger and the innocent. I swear to be the shield, the guardian, the constant presence, not for glory or power, but because it is right, because they are young and they deserve to grow up safe." The new guardians repeated it, their voices mixing in different tones and languages, but all meaning the same thing. After the ceremony, Kira found herself back at the memorial wall. It had become tradition. Every guardian came here at least once, to sit and rest, to think about why they did this work. She sat down in her armor. The wall was warm from the afternoon sun. She closed her eyes and just breathed. Then she felt it. The familiar weight, small bodies climbing onto her armor. Cubs, younglings, hatchlings from species she could and couldn't name. They found the spaces between her armor plates, settled on her shoulders, curled against her chest. Within moments, they were sleeping. Lieutenant Chen approached with a new trainee, a human man who had just arrived from Earth. That's Commander Mendoza, Chen said quietly. That's what we protect. That trust. That peace. The new trainee stared. They just come to her? They come to all of us eventually. Humans, I mean. It's what makes us different. We're Deathworlders, apex predators, survivors of extinction. But we're also this. She gestured to Kira and her sleeping pile of alien younglings. We're the species that refuses to let children be afraid. Any children from any world. Does it ever stop being amazing? The trainee asked. Chen smiled. Never. That's how you know you're in the right place. Kira sat there for an hour while the younglings slept. She thought about the journey that had led here, from a soldier resting after training to a commander of an entire corps. She thought about how 3 small cubs climbing onto her armor had changed not just her life, but the entire galaxy's understanding of humanity. Humans were predators, yes. They came from a world that tried to kill them constantly. They were strong and dangerous and capable of terrible violence, but they were also this, guardians, protectors, the species that couldn't walk past a crying child without stopping to help. The younglings began to wake as the sun set. One by one, they climbed down, yawned, and went to find their parents. Each one touched her armor gently before leaving, a thank you in their own way. Finally, only one remained. Pix, now a teenager in Relkin years, sat beside her instead of on her. You're thinking about her, he said. Pix had always been perceptive. Your daughter? Yes, Kira admitted. Do you think she would have liked the Guardian Corps? Kira smiled. She would have joined the moment she was old enough. She was always bringing home stray animals, trying to help anyone who was hurt or scared. Then she was a guardian too, just like you. They sat together in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear overhead. The station hummed with life around them, 1,000 species living and working together, protected by the humans who couldn't help but protect them. Commander, Pix said after a while, thank you for all of this. I didn't do it alone, Kira replied. Everyone who trusted us made this possible. No, Pix shook his head. You rested after training. You were just sitting here tired and hurt, and we came to you. You could have pushed us away. You could have been scared, but you didn't move. You let us trust you. Everything started because you let us trust you. Kira thought about that moment 3 years ago. How simple it had been. How world-changing. I guess sometimes, she said, the biggest things start with the smallest choices, like letting 3 cubs sleep on your armor. Pix stood and stretched. I should go. Father worries when I'm out after dark. Pix! Kira called as he started to leave. Your father was right to worry about humans at first. We are dangerous. Never forget that. I know, Pix said. But the most dangerous thing about humans isn't your strength or your weapons. It's that you make us believe the galaxy can be better. That's the truly frightening power. He grinned. Good night, Guardian. Kira watched him go, then looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there were worlds she hadn't seen yet, younglings she hadn't met yet, families who might need protection someday. She stood, her armor humming as it powered up fully. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new missions, new chances to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to destroy, but their refusal to let any child face the darkness alone. She touched the memorial wall one last time, then walked toward the station. Behind her, the wall bore a simple inscription in every language of the Coalition. They rested after the battle, and we came to them. They did not turn us away. This is the human gift. They are fierce to their enemies and gentle to their young, always. The Guardian Corps' journey was just beginning.